Good afternoon. It is 3 p.m. and I'll call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting study session for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen.
Present.
Director Duff.
Present.
Director Martin.
Present.
Vice President Griffith.
Present.
And President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Seeing that all 5 directors are present, we'll skip item 3. Item 4, rules of procedure. Counselor?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all noticed meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting, and the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Item 5, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak today?
President Sewell, we do not.
Thank you. And we're actually going to be moving an item up, and that item is item 13. So we'll start the meeting with item 13. Resolution 2024-18, amending Resolution 2024-02, revisions to Mission Springs Water District personnel rules and regulations. It is recommended to adopt Resolution 2024-18, providing for the revisions to Mission Springs Water District's personnel rules and regulations. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask our Human Resources Manager, Oriana Author, to give this presentation and discussion item. Oriana, are you there?
She is not online. We do have V on the line.
Okay, well, I know that V put, we've made some changes to the document, which I believe we just represented on the dais. Those changes were done based on some questions that we received after we posted the document. V, would you like to go over some of the changes we have until Oriana is able to?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Directors, most of the changes that were made, I shouldn't say most, it's equally split. Some of the changes were purely policy decisions that were made to address issues that have popped up during the employment year, and other changes were made to bring the handbook into full compliance with the current state of California law. So, for example, in Rule 1B, the non-discrimination, fair and equal employment policy, the change looks like it's significant, but it really is just for ease of reference, just crossing out the original rule, because California law now requires that every company, every employer's EEO policy lists every single protected category and protected activity, as opposed to just saying, and all categories protected by law. So the red part shows we now list every category recognized under California law, including the new one, which is off the job and away from the work site marijuana use. Rule 9, dress and grooming standards, again, just minor revisions to reflect questions that employees have asked throughout the year. I think Director Huff had some questions regarding the new marijuana testing law, and that would be Rule 35. We did revise it so that it clearly says that the district will not prohibit employees from off-the-job marijuana use. That's consistent with California law. Unless employees are otherwise impaired at work or suspect or subject to federal drug testing guidelines, such as operating and driving trucks or operating heavy machinery, they would not be subjected to testing for marijuana. And in this instance, Director Huff, I'm sure you've picked up on this, and I could tell from your questions, the California law has sort of put the cart before the horse. There are very few testing facilities that can actually test for just THC as opposed to non-psychoactive cannabis metabolites, which is what California law no longer allows. But nonetheless, we clarified the policy to state that if we suspect impairment on the job and we send an employee out for testing, that they will not be subjected to testing that only tests for non-psychoactive cannabis metabolites, which would ordinarily be a hair test or urinalysis. We also updated the section on reasonable suspicion to clearly state that unless an employee is subject to federal drug testing requirements under DOT guidelines, the district, again, will not test for non-psychoactive cannabis metabolites. And then the other major revision was to the education and certification incentive pay policy, which pursuant to management discussion is now going to change significantly as stated here. Before it was a certain percentage, the pay was a certain percentage of their pay. Now it's just going to be a flat fee pay for employees achieving an educational degree that's above and beyond what's required for their positions, and to clarify how that works with respect to certifications that's required for the position. May I answer any questions?
V, before we go to questions, I see that our technical difficulties that Oriana was experiencing has been resolved. Oriana, do you have anything to add to that presentation?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. Just that Rule 39, it is still a percentage. Nothing has changed other than how we report to CalPERS. For a second, we considered the flat rate, but now we still kept it at the percentage of base pay. And that's one of the clarifications CalPERS wanted is base pay. That's all I have.
So with that, we will now open it up for any questions for staff.
Yes. Any questions or comments, Director Martin?
Just one clarification. There's a product that's a cannabis, that's a salve for aching muscles or a joint pain and stuff like that, that truly is remarkable in alleviating the pain. And I'm just wondering if that would be something that if an employee had that on while he was at work, would that be an issue?
Director Martin, this is V. My understanding is those products do not actually contain THC. So if an employee takes that product for pain management and she was subjected to the new testing requirements, it is not likely that that product would show up as a substance that violates our policy.
But obviously, if it was a product that was like a full spectrum product with THC and CBD and some other things, it could. It just depends on
Right.
what the product contains.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Director Meyerhoffen?
I do have some questions, but not for D.
Or-
Not for D. I do have some questions, but not for D.
Yeah, they're for
But
staff.
and ask right now? All right. What happened to that boot allowance? The boot allowance.
So this is just particularly the federal, or excuse me, this is the personnel guidelines. It's not about the budget. It's not about
yeah.
the employee asked.
Stuff, all right. Should we have in here that this, the training, the schooling must coincide with what we're doing here?
Oriana, do you want to?
The training, it must be relevant to not just the district, but also to the employee's position. And that it is spelled out in our employee handbook.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Director Duff?
Thank you very much. And thank you for your work in trying to address some of the questions and concerns that I had. And V, you're right, the state has kind of in their law that they have published a government code section, let's see, 12954. It's cart before the horse, yes, but one of the concerns that I brought up that didn't get corrected is that where it says psychoactive THC for employment tests, testing positive, in my opinion, it needs to be saying exactly what the law said in the non-psychoactive part. It needs to say psychoactive cannabis metabolites because both of those are THC. So they've developed tests that can allow you to see what has metabolized in your body more than 2 hours, but that can also go all the way up to 72 hours, depending on your fat content, your metabolism. And to answer Director Martin's question, yes, the SAB you're referring to does have THC. So depending on when the employee would use that, it could potentially affect the test that they may have to take.
But would it affect his abilities to any extent?
And that's where my concern is, because the testing that currently exists there isn't testing truly available that will tell you it is right now affecting your abilities, because it stores in the cells that are tested well beyond the psychoactive effects. So the only concern I have in that wording is I do believe we should follow the way the law put it and say that it, change it from the THC, psychoactive THC, to psychoactive cannabis metabolites, testing positive for psychoactive cannabis metabolites. And then the only other question that I have, given the way that it's written here, can you answer in regard to the new law from California, why we are including prospective employees in that sentence in the first place? Because the way the bill and the way that the law kind of read, it seemed as though they're trying to prevent these unemployed people from potentially not being able to get a job because of something they did before they fell under the obligations and rules of their potential new employer. So I just want to make sure that we're not just following the way the law was poorly written, but that we're trying to understand the spirit of the law at the same time. So I still have a couple concerns regarding that particular policy, but everything else was very well done. And I think it definitely fit the bill to correct issues that the state kind of has created by elaborating on all of our requirements. Thank you very much.
Director, Hub, may I respond to your question regarding testing of applicants? My understanding of how the bill is written is that applicants, well, first of all, in California, you can't test an applicant until after you've offered a bona fide offer of employment. You've issued a bona fide offer of employment. California law considers when an employee or when an applicant shows up to be drug tested as part of the offer of employment, that is considered work time. So if once California develops, or the world develops, a drug test that can truly test for psychoactive cannabis metabolites, and that applicant shows up for a drug test, which is essentially showing up for work, and is impaired, as demonstrated by the presence of psychoactive cannabis metabolites in his or her system, that person is showing up for work impaired. And based on that, a job offer can be rescinded. That said, I will leave it to the district and to the board of directors to determine as a business decision whether you want to take it that far. I will tell you that we have a number of clients who just no longer test applicants for marijuana.
Vice President, any questions or comments?
I have nothing. Thank you. Good job.
Director
Um,
Mayo?
THC will stay in your system for 3, maybe 6 months, depending on how big of a smoker you are. You ran into this from truck driving school, and go down and get the test before you go down there, and you'll be talking to dots. And a lot of guys still have the problem because it was so long. As I sit here and thinking about it, the work that as it goes on out there in the field, I think that we should just, I know there's California law, but if we can just say anybody testing for THC shouldn't be working here.
Can I rebut to that briefly, President?
Yes.
I promise to keep it very brief. It already excludes anyone who is required by DOT regulations. So all of those workers that drive our equipment and operate the heavy machinery already have extra federal guidelines that prevent their use, period.
I
So
understand.
I just wanted to clarify that we already do maintain that those workers cannot participate in any drugs, but yeah.
Yes, I understand. Thank you for clarifying that. There's workers out there using power tools. Driving. We get pulled over, 12 hours, it'll be really in your system. So it's up to you guys. If it was up to me, I would just say no. I hate to be a stick in the mud, but for what we're doing here, it should be no.
Just a quick question. I want to make sure that I fully understand the changes that we've discussed. I think the first change was removing THC and putting the actual legal definition in that. Is there an issue if we do that? We change the wording between now and Monday?
Not at all. That's very easy to do. I can easily put psychoactive cannabis metabolites. We stated in section A regarding reasonable suspicion, and I'll just change the THC in section 3 to state psychoactive cannabis metabolites.
And then the second thing is how we test before they're actually hired. I know we went, it's okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Board President.
And I have nothing further. Thank you for the presentation, V and Oriana. And we'll go back to the original order. And so we're item 6, Human Resources Report, we'll do on Monday,
Correct?
as well as both presentations, CWEA awards will be Monday, and the Government Finance Officers Association, item 8, will also be Monday. Action items, item 9, public hearing, will be Monday, but resolution 2024-11 to establish water and standby assessments. It is recommended that resolution 2024-11 will be adopted, making a determination to fix, levy, and collect water service standby assessments for the fiscal year 2024-25. General Manager?
So yes, Board President, typically because it's a public hearing item on Monday, we want to give our presentation and all of our
Okay.
back and forth on the record on Monday. So both this item and the next item will also be given, unless there are any questions specific to the staff report or anything like that. We are available right now.
Okay, let's just try and maybe cover both. For item 9 and 10, we'll be doing the presentations Monday, but do we have any questions or comments from the board, Director Duff?
Thank you. Just one actually on 10, and I guess it would probably apply in some fashion to 9. But you talk about on existing properties prior to passage of the proposition, but do we know how many properties exist since the passing of that proposition that will be an issue in the, like, how many existing properties outside of that? Do you understand my question? I'm sorry. Long day.
If I may, in part of the presentation was going to be an overview of that information. The rates that we use are based from 1966, 1974. The maintenance fees for all of those lines, which is exactly what that is on the water and sewer, as you know, have skyrocketed. And those fees are not sufficient to maintain those lines. However, because of the way that it was written, we can only charge those assessments that we did back then and the amounts that we did, unless we have an actual rate study that updates those fees for those properties, the parcels. So we do not have an actual number of lots that are affected other than what we had back then and that we continue carrying forward. The other thing is once they do connect to our system, we have to remove them from the standby list.
So I guess my question maybe would be, since last year's number, how much has that list increased?
They don't increase, they decrease because as
We don't add to, because
don't
we're
add-
not allowed to.
right,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President, any questions? No. Director Martin? Director Martin? Thank you. So item 9 and 10 presentations will be Monday. Item 11, resolution 2024-13, addition of delinquent accounts to county tax rolls. It is recommended to adopt resolution number 2024-13, requesting the addition of delinquent water and sewer charges and other fees of $5 or more to the 2024-2025 Riverside County tax rolls. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask that our Director of Finance, Arturo Seja, give this presentation. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. I will give you a quick overview of the delinquent accounts on the county tax rolls. Let me share my screen. It is green for a reason, and of course I missed that the first time I looked. Again, it'll be a quick update on the how the delinquent accounts work and how we decide to put them on the property taxes. State law, as you know, Prop 218 basically requires that we charge each individual customer what they owe the district, what it costs for the district to deliver water and sewer charges to their property. When we don't do that, we have to come up with a difference from everyone else in the within the district, which is a huge problem because we can't do that. We cannot circumvent and come up with the balance from everyone else for those that actually use the service to pay for that water. We don't just go out and cut someone off if they don't pay. We have a very detailed process of what we have to do by state law that requires at least several communications with our customer, and again, several before we actually put them on the property taxes. So California Water Code 31701, if you want to read more, I can send all of this information to you, but that's what it comes down to. Government Code Chapter 3, again, it basically tells us how we have to go about doing this and the fact that we have to put it on the property taxes. It's not necessarily something we can collect. Other water districts do work with a collections agency, but it is very costly. And it also requires additional staffing time to do that, when we have this ability to simply send it to the property taxes. One of the things we did over the last 2 years, as you know, that the state did provide arrearage funding for our customers. The first round we applied, we got $1.2 million to pay for those delinquent charges. The second round we just finished, and we were able to collect $330,000 for our customers, which this time around they included sewer fees. However, because we do put our sewer fees on the property taxes, that amount was lower than it would have been. But again, those are not delinquent. This is only for delinquencies. We have a LIHWAP program, which this year so far has put $136,000 for our customers. We go through a process of delinquent water bills, red bills, telling our customers they have not paid their water bill and they're at risk of being shut off. Phone alerts. We have social media posts. We also call the customers before we put it on the property taxes, so we can remind them we have one last chance. The final deadline is August 10th. Here's your opportunity to pay one more time before we do have to send it. In addition to last 2 years, the board did approve that we increase the United Way contributions to $100, which helps customers keeping the water on and avoid being shut off. Just a comparison from 2 years, when we had the moratorium of not shut-offs by the state. This year we have 170 delinquent accounts that are scheduled to be sent to the property taxes. Last year, we had 272. This year, the amount is 200,000. Last year, that was 613,000. And you can see basically the total that we've collected in delinquent charges, they don't stop, they continue, is 615,000. However, more customers have reached out. They know that the moratorium is no longer in effect, and they're at risk of having to be sent to the property taxes. So the outreach is working. Those customers are coming and paying, but there's always those few that are just not going to. I've heard conversations from some of the customers that they know that another funding is coming. And so, you know, that's the idea that a lot of people have. However, that has not been said at all by the state in any way whatsoever. But we still have those customers that now that they are not paying, we're going to put them on the property taxes. And again, this is making sure that we collect what people are using in water and not having to spread it to everyone in the district. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Director Martin?
Yeah, just one question on there. When you're a renter and have a delinquent water bill and stuff, you get notified of the shortcomings and while there's an communication there. What efforts do we make to also communicate with the property owner?
We do. Whenever we have a regular bill, it goes straight to the renter. When we have a delinquent bill, which is a red bill, a copy goes to the owner on file as well. So it's the owners are aware of the fact that their tenant is not paying their water bill every single time.
Thank you.
Director Meyerhoff?
How long does it take for the Riverside County tax people to send us the money? I know at one time it was like 2 years, and that was a while back.
It's on the next collection period. So it's when we put it now in August, we're gonna get it in April and December. We are on the teeter plan. What that means is that the county does pay us directly. But when any delinquent charges, late fees and things like that they have to go after these customers, they keep themselves. So the benefit to us is we get that money directly and we get 100% of it. The bad part of it is they keep those late fees and charges, which to us is okay because there's no way to know how much that could be. It could be $10, it could be 100,000. There's no way for us to be able to work with that. However, we do know that we can collect 100% once we put it on that process.
And we treat commercial the same as we do residential.
We do.
So I'm looking here at 2 pages over, where you have all the, and I looked up some of these addresses. And lo and behold, we got one guy here who's a commercial owner, has the property up for sale. We're looking at what, $26,000? So he's probably just saying, I'll put it on the rolls and I'll work with that money. And when it sells, no money out of my pocket. So why don't we just put a lien on this property?
We do put a lien on it. That is the first step for us to go and put it on the property taxes. So that when that property goes up for sale, we are first in line to collect that money. However, if we do not put a lien and there's this time frame that happens, they could sell that property and not alert us of the fact that they have a new owner and therefore we cannot go after the new owner. So in our process, we do make sure that we take care of that because it happens.
Okay, good. I was wondering about how, I was thinking of the financial part of all that. So thank you for that. Now here's another one I ran into. It was a mobile home. $6,000 for a mobile home space? I just don't understand. Yeah, I mean, how do you end up with a $6,000 water bill in a mobile home space? And then it came to another $1,000 one for the same space. How I don't get it.
I would have to look at those details to the accounts you're looking at so I can help review that and provide an answer.
Right, there we are. It's at 15300 Palm Drive, space 76. $6,802.70. And then there's a second one, $1,276.
Does it provide the space number?
Yes, it says 97.
So that is, each property has their own, and there's certain areas in the city where mobile home parks do provide their own space, their own land to some of these mobile homes. Some of them are duplexes or individual, and we have to charge based on that, you know, the type of unit that it is. But it's like any other customer, they're accumulating water. Some of them will let that water run, and we have no control over, other than when we have to shut them off. And those fees do accumulate until we go through the process of turning them off and sending it to the county for payment.
Just seems that, I just don't understand how it could have gotten that far out of hand. I know the ground conditions there, you can't leave a hose running and it'll seep right in.
So and just to give you an idea of what we're working with here, in one instance, we had that situation in the past where the mobile home space number was actually the clubhouse. And so as you can imagine, within the clubhouse, there's more water being used than a normal property when you have people, you know, collected eating in that property or using the restroom. And I cannot speak to this one, but I can tell you that that's what's been the case in the past.
This was an actual mobile home.
No, in our accounts, it'll show up as a mobile home, but in reality, when you go to the property, it could be something else as opposed to.
In reality, when I looked up the address, it's a mobile home that came up for sale. Now, there's one out in Whitewater, comes out as a 60-unit home. It was
Is that
actually
on the list?
a boys reform school at one time.
Okay.
They're on here also, but it has two different bills there. So I just, the mobile home ones kind of concern me because 55 and older, somebody may end up losing a mobile home, and how I got that high is, I can't figure it out. But anyways, that's the ones that concern me. Everybody knows how I feel about putting stuff on the tax rolls. I don't like it. Thank you.
Director Duff?
Thank you, President. Great work on all of these. Just a quick question and then a comment. It said that there was a 60-day cutoff. So given we have this list prepared and this is the list as it will be submitted in August, was the cutoff March? Was it April of this year?
It was April.
April. Okay, and that's the same pretty much every year.
It is, and that counting from May to June, that's the 60 days that we would count, because then that they would not be delinquent. However, we do reach out before we send them out to the property taxes one last time,
Right.
alerting those that had that time span and review that list once again.
Perfect, perfect. And then I was happy that you clarified something that I wasn't really aware of before. The comment that you made earlier, I just want to re-highlight it. By us putting these, I knew that it was saving us money because we weren't having to collect on them. But for those who then don't pay their property taxes, we aren't having to deal with that either. And that is huge, that we're guaranteeing being reimbursed and keeping our water and sewer accounts as flush as possible every year. Reconciling them that way is great for our budget and for the community. So again, our full community doesn't pay for those who decide not to pay, hoping someone else will. So thank you very much. Great work. And I just wanted to re-highlight that comment. Thank you.
Vice President?
And so just for clarification, for anybody that's actually paying attention, once this list goes there, so we send this on August 10th. So September 1st, they come and say, I want to pay this bill. It's already on the rolls. There's nothing we can do, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I think between your comments, it covered a lot of what I was going to say, but just thank you for putting last year's info up, because I did pull up last year's and just saw how big of a difference it is. And I think it speaks to staff's being proactive and sharing these programs like LIWAP and things like that to keep these charges down. Your comment, Vice President, of where it kind of resets once we send it over to the tax roll. Do we have, so I didn't dig deep enough to see, are a lot of these accounts the same accounts from last year that get?
Some are, the majority of them are not.
Okay. Right. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. Item 12, fiscal year 2024-25 budget. Is three parts. Item A is recommended to adopt resolution number 2024-14, adopting the operating and capital budgets fiscal year 2024-25. B, it is recommended to adopt resolution number 2024-15, adopting its appropriations limit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. And C, it is recommended to adopt resolution number 2024-16, adopting its employee classification plan effective July 1st, 2024. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. I would like to welcome Director of Finance, Arturo Seja, to discuss our 24-25 budget.
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. As you remember, we did give out a detailed presentation at the workshop last week. I will go over a lot of those same details to reiterate what we went through and the information presented to you, giving you another opportunity to ask any detailed questions that you may have. As you do know, that workshop was public. We did open it to the public. In fact, we did have Council Member John Pye show up to the presentation to view everything that we presented to the board. And it also is open for all of our other customers to participate in that workshop, and also today and on Monday when we have the regular board meeting. Share my screen. And let's see. So again, the process pretty straightforward. We began in March asking departments to submit their department budgets, capital improvement requests, and also the salaries. Whenever that is pretty much the three parts to our budget that you're going to see that has the major effect on what we spend and the revenues that come in from our customers, primarily again water and sewer. 900 line items for the entire district. Those used to be almost 2,000. We have consolidated a lot of that because it was just people asking for new line item after line item when they could have used something from already used in the past, and it was just sitting there. So that's basically what the process is, back and forth, provide support for your requested number. In March, we start with going to the employees for the employee request. As you know, we are not union. However, we do go to our staff, asking them what is their preference in terms of the benefits and any other changes that they might want to see. This year, as you remember, the main items that came about was the increase to that wood allowance, and also for the COLA of the 4.78%. Because we are not union, we cannot negotiate the percentage. We go by our consumer price index number, which happens to be from March to March at 4.78. We have a meeting to go over all the information with the managers before we start working and finally presenting it at the workshop after being reviewed by the general manager. And this year, with one of the board members that did come in and provided a lot of detailed questions that was really good for us to prepare and continue to work on those numbers. It did change some of the numbers we had originally based on those conversations. So we do appreciate that from the board. And finally, the study session and board meeting coming up on Monday. After that, if it is approved, we do the final item is to request the GFOA Certificate of Excellence on Budgeting, which is one of the presentations that you're going to see on Monday for last year's. What drives our budget in 2025? Strict state regulations. You're all very aware of what's happening with the state, Chrome 6, PFAS, and everything else that's coming down the pipeline. Conservation mandates up to 40% for the district, which is ridiculous. And you can see those numbers in the cost. Rising electrical costs. We were told by SCE a 20% increase. The new regional wastewater plant is going to be operational, increasing those costs. We are tracking the costs for each plant separately, so that we'll have a better picture come at the end of the year of what it is costing us to run each of the plants. We did make sure to set codes for those so that we can track what's being spent on each of them. And we'll have a better picture for next year's budget to be able to prepare for it. The delayed capital improvements that we've done in the past that are creating some of the major issues, like what happened with Hillary, and water affordability for our customers to make sure everyone can afford water. Again, water revenue consumption reduced by 6%, and it's basically looking at the trends that we provided in the GM report as to the consumption and production numbers going down every month. Drop in delinquent charges, you saw those numbers earlier. Again, our customers are paying their water bill, and a lot of them are doing them sooner rather than waiting for that late fee to apply. We did reduce give back to our customers canceled roughly 70,000 in late fees this year. In the way that we work with them to make sure that we can also do our part in helping them pay their water bill. One new position that we did include this year, which is a contracts analyst. And then the deferred maintenance, of course, that we talked about. The budget review in terms of the reports is what is going to be presented here. The budget summary, the comparison, budget by function, capital projects, it's not listed here, but the GAN limit, I'll go over what that is, and also the staff, full-time employee listing, and salary schedule, which is we are required by law to present that to you and approved by the board. Capital improvements, we are being asked, and by the way, this is the only number that changed from the workshop to today. The added capital improvements increased by $6 million from what was presented earlier at 76 million, completed in 2024, 1.5 million, for a total change of 74 million increase in the capital improvements. For the GAN limit, this is basically what the state says, based on a number from 1974 and then on based on population and based on the consumer price index, this is your allowed amount that you can use in helping your customers and providing all these resources to provide water and also to keep the water running and sewer. So that is what we use. That initial calculation, 1974, multiplied by the per capita increase that the state provides, and also the population increase that they say that our city grew by, is what we have to use to come up with this year's increase of $5.4 million. Making it $125 million. If you saw our budget summary, we're around 40,000. We're not going to go over that. And that is why the limit exists, to make sure that we're not spending more than what we're collecting in property taxes, which you can see in our property taxes, $2.6 million is not going to come close to that 125 million. This is primarily for cities, but it is something as a special district that we have to go through. In the department budgets, this is basically the report that we provide every year. I did provide detailed information at the workshop, and that I will show that here next with additional reports that we did provide. Again, operating revenues, $20.3 million, which is a decrease of last year based on that consumption. The expenses of 27 million. Primarily increases in operating budgets, and also the one salary, electric, utility, and you'll see those details. Non-operating revenue, again, the property taxes, $2.3 million. Interest income, $2.2 million. Those rates are starting to go back up, and it is a good time for the district with those investments to keep them in the long range standing, as opposed to short term or cashing them out to have in cash. The grant, 21 million, is what is left over from the regional plant. We did receive those last two checks that for the last two requests that we were sent into the state, and that is what's left over on the project. Interest expense, 400,000. Last year, that number was 800,000. The main reason for the decrease, we did pay off two debts in the year. And also, as we pay off, that interest number keeps going down, including the expected pay down of the regional plant cash flow loan of $15 million. In comparing the functional expense, I think this shows a better picture in terms of the expenses, as opposed to one department versus another. In the next year, what I will do is I will provide side by side that detail of salaries, expenses for each department, However, what I did is I went back and I pulled each of the departments based on their salaries. So you can see and compare to the total budget for the entire district. For example, when you look at wastewater disposal, the utilities is one of the largest increases in that department. Again, I don't show the increase, but I am going to go over those in detail. Outside services, the same thing, and primarily for the sludge disposal, that we do have increased costs over the last couple of years. And again, I'm just showing you how it is presented on the original report by department and then by category from, again, salaries, benefits, outside services, electric, utility, and so forth. Wastewater treatment, again, we do have certain chemicals that they have to purchase this year coming up, and some of the reports that we do have for the state, like the encroachment permits that we have to take out for some of these projects. All of that is in here, and why there is an increase in the wastewater treatment department. In collections, again, outside services primarily due to that temporary help that they do have and need to hire to keep now the additional plant running as well. Transmission and distribution, we do have a lot more projects going on in the city, a lot of repairs to the roads, a lot of asphalt that we have to replace. That's what's included in here, including some of the trainings we now have to do with the state for Class B drivers and a few others that are new in the year. Pumping, same thing, chemicals, outside services, utilities is their major expenses. They have not had an increase in salaries other than what's expected for the COLA, but that is what is included in the major expenses here, outside services for those chemicals that they do have to maintain in the pumping department. The accounting department, nothing changed. Everything was pretty much straightforward from the previous year. Engineering, the same. One major change in engineering, as you remember, last year was the supplemental environmental project. That has fallen off, and there's only a few expenses left over in this year for that department. Everything else is normal outside services for that engineering support that we do need. If you see the hiring list from other districts, there's more than likely an engineer position that they're hiring for, and that's throughout the state. Human resources, the main increases in here, outside services as well for temporary help. We are keeping HR very busy, and it shows in her budget, and including the trainings that we have to do for the workplace violence prevention program, and a few others that came out this year. Public affairs, again, outside services. We do have to do a lot of outreach now, having to educate our customers about what Chrome 6 is, what it is in our water. That CCR that we have to put out. A lot of it is education to our customers and going over the information with them so that they know exactly what's in their water. Unfortunately, a lot of times we do have to spend more explaining what it is as opposed to what they saw in a movie and they think it's in our water. I just saw dark water, so that was the main thing. The main theme from that movie was PFAS. And so it was very interesting to me in the way they put the information out that now creates more work for staff having to explain to our customers, no, it is not in your water. Board of directors, the main two changes in here, the stipend for the board of the day of service did increase. And there's 3 positions open this year that the county has instructed us. We do have to pay the county for those election services. And if you have one board member for election, it's roughly $5,000. The second one doubles and the third one triples. So pretty much came out to $40,000 that we have to pay the county. Information technology, like we discussed in the past, primarily GIS, and the new, we're looking into an ERP system for the finance program that we are currently using that it's over 30 years old and definitely needs to improve and help with the day-to-day operations. A lot of reporting that we just cannot get right now and not able to provide or do our job efficiently and we need to do that. Administration, pretty straightforward with these. Again, legal, the fixed assets on some of those major projects, dues and subscriptions, trainings, conferences. That's where the Aqua and all of the trips to Washington DC are coded to. And again, outside services, primarily some of those consulting services that we have to get for everything that we keep bringing to the board. Central services, this is basically what administration, copying services, the copy machine, salaries that are very much tied to that for the scanning, and those reports that we do have to create for the state as well. Vehicle maintenance, straightforward. Again, the outside service is the main item in here. We are leasing those vehicles, and as you know, we are scheduled to purchase and lease a few more due to the requirements by the state of the electrification, I believe it's being called. Buildings and grounds, again, the main thing here is the outside services, materials, primarily for that building, the janitorial, not janitorial, the gardening services that we do have. That is where it gets coded, and that's based on their last invoice to us. Included salaries and wages, that is the amount of hours that we have our staff spending on this project. And finally, I believe we go to customer accounts, which is customer service. And again, this includes the portal and the outside services. It includes the printing of those invoices that we do have to send to our customers. And they did provide us update this year of an increase that everyone's going through, and that is what we present in the budget. So overall, by department, that is what we are presenting to the board in terms of the requests. If there's any details that you would like for me to provide, please let me know, and I will provide those to you. Otherwise, we can move on to the capital improvement budget. Again, the part of the detail of the increases in here.
Have any questions so far before we move on to capital? Okay.
The $6 million that were added after the workshop were the terrace reservoir, 1, 2, and 3 for some of the major projects and that we do have to make on those reservoirs. Everything else was primarily new in the year. And the two major items in here primarily are the water line replacement easements. We've been talking to the board about that several times. And also the M2 water line replacement, which is in line with the regional wastewater plant project and the grant that is associated with the state. We are finishing the area M2 as part of that project. And we do have to have that water line replacement program in there as well to take advantage. We have done a better job this year at splitting the costs of what is expected to be funded in 24-25 and 5 years from there. We are going back to staff and making sure that we are realistic in what we are showing that we're going to spend in the next year, and simply, provided better information as opposed to just throwing a number that, everyone wants to do everything, and that's just not doable. And finally, just a summary of those numbers. Again, this year, 2025, we are scheduled to complete $44 million of the capital improvement plan of a total of $227 million. And then the following year, 38 million, followed by $2 million by that water line replacement. Going on to the funded full-time employee listing. Again, this number was a total of 53 last year, 54 this year without one addition. We did have a couple of changes in reorganizing the district to continue to meet the needs of our customers and the residents. And that's, you'll see if you compare last year's to this, what actually went, the changes. Finally, the salary matrix, the matrix includes that 4.78% COLA increase. And again, you can do the calculation and you can see that that's what the only changes included in here. Finally, the org chart showing you the positions by the organization and where all of those positions are. Included in your budget report is also the report that we're going to be putting out in terms of the complete budget. This report, again, it is the second year that we're presenting this to the board in a final product. It does include a lot more information than it ever has. And you can see the work that it goes into putting in this together, in looking at all the departments, asking them, what are your accomplishments? What are your goals for next year based on the strategic plan? How are we doing with our customers? What is the message from the general manager to the board? And basically for everyone to see where we're heading in the next year at least, and 4 years after that, in the report with all of those details. And at this point, I will open it up for questions.
Any questions, Director Martin? Director Myohoppen?
I forgot what page they were on, but I noticed there was 500,000, a little over $500,000 spent on environmental studies. Are you familiar with that one? I know there's a lot in here. I don't expect you to be.
Let me see if I can find out.
I meant to go over it again twice and then write it down, but I didn't have time to do it. Something came up. What, Arturo, since it's so long, I'm sorry. I'm so used to calling you Arturo, I should call you by your last name. Why don't I just go ahead and when I look through it again, I'll send you an email and we'll figure it out from there, be faster. Thank you for all your work you're doing on this. I was very happy to hear you saying you were categorizing everything for each department. And that was really a concern of mine with this Proposition 218 coming up. And so I'm glad you're on the ball and you're right on top of it. Thank you.
Director Duff?
Thank you. You and your department have done an incredible job meeting the demands of your new board and of the public. Really appreciate all the work that's gone into the details that are required to truly be transparent. And so I just, first of all, wanted to let you know how much I appreciate that. For public purposes, I did have a few things I just kind of wanted to reiterate that I had sent in question form that I know we've talked about, but I just want to touch on a couple of them for public benefit. When we talked about the COLA and how our COLA was based, I did want to just give public a little bit of and now I'm seeming disorganized, I apologize. So the federal COLA was 3.2, which then whittled down to 2% basically. And then there are some other districts in the valley that used a slightly higher, but not by much. We're talking a few points. So I wanted to state that our COLA rate is truly representative of our community's numbers, and it's a great place to start there. California as a whole is only 4.12%. So we are superseding what California is saying as a whole. So that's good. The other thing we had talked about in my questions, which I appreciate you bringing up, was the GAN limits. I asked a question about whether we had a litigation contingency accrual account, and your answer was yes and no. Yes, if we find out that we have something going on, no, in general. I just kind of want to put on a ticker that we may want to discuss that for the following year and put that on. We might want to add something to that. The other, let's see.
Just if I may answer.
Yes, please.
As part of the audit, the auditors do send letters to our legal counsel asking them if they are aware of any potential items that we have to record as part of the audit process. And that is when usually we become aware of those items. However, if there's anything that is more certain than not, if we have that number, an estimate, then that's what we can use to put in the report in our books.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. And then under some language, I just have a little language issue on the financial structure process policy that's included in this as a whole. On page 84, we talk about the bidding and contract policies and procedures. And there's 3 different categories: minor project, intermediate project, and major project. I have some concerns regarding the language on the intermediate and major project. It doesn't state that those do or do not require public bid at the limit that they're at. And I think we need to provide some clarifying language there that says whether those would require public bid or whether they still have general manager, private contracting abilities. And I also wanted to just present for discussion for all of us to think about. There's nothing in here that talks about limits on a particular contractor. So I guess what I don't know the proper word. There is a word and I'm missing it right now. But okay, the limit of $75,000 per contract that can be awarded in purchase order form, for example. How many $75,000 contracts are we allowed to give one contractor before that tells us, no, we probably should bring that back to the board because this is now 5 or 6 of those $75,000 contracts per se. So I just would like to see us, not necessarily for this particular passing, but I would like to see us discuss this language a little bit more in depth in the very near future, not mid-budget, but
Thank you for that question. We are looking at that particular, and that's why the GM is laughing. Because we just discussed that this morning. We are updating our procurement policy altogether with the changes we are now making with the contracts. Contracts is a starting point in a lot of the things we do, but it is not the end all for our vendors. And there's a lot that is involved that we are not currently tracking, just because we're not aware of some of those things that do affect everything together. So we are definitely talking about bringing that up and updating the procurement policy and contracts and adding a few other safeguards that we don't currently have because we don't have a contracts policy. So thank you for starting that discussion last year when it was requested that we start a contracts analyst position. So thank you.
thank you for that.
And just for my benefit, what page were you on?
I'm sorry, I was on page 84 of the financial structure process and policy 2025.
Thank you.
And before you go to your next comment, just to reiterate that one particular issue, and the reason we're all smiling is because there was some questions about that in our policy, but we have taken an internal past practice thought that if it's over 75, not only for one contract, but for one vendor, then it comes to the board. And also when you're taking something to the board, for example, you'll see on here, I believe it's a janitorial contract. It's only really $35,000 a year. And I don't know exactly what that number is, but because it's 3 years, we go over that 75,000 threshold. And we are actually bringing that to the board for that reason as well. So we look at that in several different ways, one, a contract period, but also with a vendor, because we realize that when we start doing those things, we don't want to be accused at some point of piecemealing something together so we can continue to use one contractor. So that's an internal practice that we've used at least as long as I've been here, and we'll continue to do that, but we will memorialize it and bringing back to you some type of workshop activity because our contract analyst is finding a lot of these things and wanting to bring those to the board for a future policy. So just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Glad we added his position. And I do want to add to what you just said and thank you because you have in your leadership provided additional transparency that wasn't required by code or policy, but you brought things to us over the last 9 months that you weren't required to, but you did because you want the public to have that transparency, which I greatly appreciate. I think lastly, the only thing I had left, which was just a small comment, and I'm bringing it up because I just had the same public witness discussion at CVAG and CVCC this morning. When we list things, and I'm on page 95 or 57 of the financial summaries, when we list other expenses or anything that's fairly miscellaneous, it immediately makes public ask questions. So I would like to see us somehow, even in parentheses, identify what that is so that nothing is left asking questions. And I think for now, that pretty much does it for me. Thank you for giving me the extra time, President and board members, and thank you for helping.
Vice President?
Don't have to ask much. I just want to say thank you. You know, these documents are quite intense, actually, when you look at them. And I appreciate the feedback that we've given you being turned into this document, which makes it really much easier to take a look step by step, department by department and compare. And so I really applaud you for the amount of work that went into this. Great job. That's really all I have to say.
I'll echo that. A lot of good discussion, and I think with our workshops now, I think there's a lot better communication that we're having amongst the board and with staff. I really do appreciate the amount of work that goes into this, and I think every year we've improved it. Not just for the board's benefit. I know you've mentioned it's been a benefit for the staff, but really, like Vice President Griffith mentioned, there's a lot to this. And I think the way you have it laid out, especially the whole budget as itself, someone could take that and really get a lot out of it without needing someone to kind of hold their hand and show them through. So I think it's just speaking to how we're doing a better job for our public. And again, there are a lot of big numbers on there, but I think the report shows more the value that those numbers represent and what we're doing for our community. So thank you very much. Anything further on the budget? All right. We covered item 13 at the beginning of the meeting. Item 14, contract agreement with Premier Property Preservation LLC for annual janitorial services for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask our Director of Operations, Danny Friend, to give this presentation. Danny?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board. What we have today in front of you is staff recommendation to authorize the general manager to approve a one-year contract with Premier Property Preservation LLC for annual janitorial services 2024-2025. You may recall last year we brought a similar item back to the board and it was actually approved with up to 2 additional one-year terms. And what we have determined is we were going to add in the regional facility. And rather than make that cumbersome and bring that back to the board, we thought that it would be best to go ahead and re-advertise that project out. We did so. So last year's, if we would have continued last year's contract, and it's unfortunate because I really do like the contractor or the consultant. They're a great company. Executive Services is great, but it would have been $47,580. But the current lowest bid that we received 4 of them. Premier Property Preservation being the lowest, being presented today at $34,320. The highest being Coastal Building Services Incorporated at $53,144. And what I was getting ready to say is the current contract would be $47,580 had we actually extended it, and slightly higher, I'd imagine, perhaps bringing on the regional location. One of the other items that what was done here is we've got 2 cleaning days and 2 disinfection days, and we reduced the disinfection days by 2. So there would have been an actual deduction because the second low bidder is Executive Facilities, and they came in $5,000 less than their last year's bid. So unfortunately, they did get outbid. But the fortunate part is there's a big savings to be recognized by the district, and that from the last year's contract, or if we would extend it, it would have been $13,200 a year. So I don't know if there's anything really more to add to that. As the general manager mentioned earlier, typically this one-year contract would be something that we wouldn't bring to the board, but as he stated, collectively 3 years, if we choose to go that, could be as high as $113,256. So that's one of the reasons why we're bringing that here today. I'm open for questions.
Director Dove?
Thank you. 2 questions, actually, and they're both somewhat related. And I don't know if we'll need to ask our HR department, but I know that we are reducing because there's no longer any legal requirements for any extra COVID disinfection protocols. But since COVID ended, and we had maintained those extra disinfection days, have we noticed healthier employees and less sick days? Because one concern I would have is if we are reducing that and now our employee sick days increase, that will cost us more in the long run in the big overall picture of our company. So that was my 1 and 2 comment/question.
Great questions. So just for clarification, We weren't required to do so. That was a district decision. And one of the things that I do want to make sure that I wasn't clear when I read it is $34,320 per year plus a 10% contingency. And the reason that we have contingency is to add in emergency items. So although it wasn't required, we did. The second part of your question, I don't have that. And I would love to go ahead and meet with Oriana or HR and then bring that back to you on Monday, or we can either email that out beforehand.
We will definitely do that if we do see a trend. When you asked the question, I thought, oh, that's a great question. I wish we could answer that. But then it dawned on me that when we were going through the COVID protocols, if anybody was coughing, we immediately sent them home, and they weren't being sent home before COVID. So if we were if we looked at that trend, it would really be a big spike, not necessarily because of COVID, but for any COVID related illness. So moving forward, I think it is a good thing to look at to see if there is any change, but I think it'd have to start this year and then look at that moving forward. But if Oriana has anything to share on Monday, we'll definitely bring that back forward.
And at minimum, make sure she watches that so that if she's noticing during certain seasons of the year that the health of our staff is becoming a petri dish, let's see if we can use some of those contingency funds to add extra disinfection. That's my
Certainly.
comment.
If
Thank
I
you.
may, if I may add to what the general manager stated, I know it's been mentioned before, but we've actually updated our air recycling and the filtration of the building. That's still going to remain, and that's still something that we have. But again, like as General Manager Macy said, if somebody's coughing, everybody's staring. So we're asking, come on, guys.
It's a different environment
It's
now.
a different environment. So it's like, I'm still getting over something that I'm not sure. I'm not going to pick out any names today, of course, but I'm still coughing over something that was brought into the district. So, and anyhow, so I still have any additional questions? I'm sorry.
Vice President?
Are you sure you didn't bring it in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Vice President Griffin, absolutely.
And just, I know we brought this because over the 3 years, it's over the 75 threshold, but at the end of the year, if we're not happy, we have the right to go out and rebid, correct?
Certainly, actually, the contract has a 30-day off ramp, or what would you call it? We can actually terminate either party can.
Okay, thank you.
Director Martin, any questions?
Nope.
Director Meyerhoffen?
Yes. I'd like to see money being spent here in the local community. This company is outside of, down in LA, I think it was, or something.
Honestly, I didn't check to see where they were. I was focused on the numbers.
So it's just a big company, and then they probably have some little guy here that comes in and fills in for them, but and the insurance, my main point is I wish we could get more of our local people here in the Coachella Valley working in these units.
I agree. I don't necessarily need to reply to that, but I will. One of the things is executive facilities is not local. They're in the Inland Empire as well. They bring in a local staff. We had them before. We lost them for a couple of years, and then we brought them back. And we were fortunate to get the same person back. That's why I'm a little disappointed that they're leaving. There's been opportunity for that same person to also work with the other. So I don't know how it works in that industry, but they seem to, hey, like, who do you want to come work for us? And you know the buildings, you know the facilities. So maybe we're gonna get lucky. And that person I do know lives here in Desert Hot Springs. She has all the libraries. So she does our local library. She does the libraries throughout the Coachella Valley. So I'd be happy to see her come back. So.
Is there any special requirements? Like I know on the contracts, they have to do some special training and tests before they can bid on those contracts. Is this the same thing for janitorial services here?
It's we require professional janitorial services. They have to be licensed. They have to be insured, of course. But other than that, business license, they have to go ahead and provide a background check. But if they could provide all the requirements that everybody else has, then I imagine they could.
I think that was D something was the training that they had to do before they could bid on a contract here.
I'd have to come back to you for the exact
But
time.
anyways, that's what I was asking. The next thing is yeah, I guess in the contract, they break down the contract that you got had the actual cost of each facility. It was the time and actual cost for each facility is being serviced by these folks? Or was it just, this is the amount for everything?
Can you ask it again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, So here we have a county modular. So when they turned in the bid, did they say that the county modular was going to take 3 man-hours or people hours, and the cost for the materials is going to be so much to maintain to do the janitorial services for the county modular?
I follow what you're saying now. Aren't you asking? So no, we didn't ask that to that level of detail. We did ask that they provide the labor, the materials, the equipment, all the supplies that are required, the insurances, to be able to take care of the facility that you just mentioned, the administration building, the annex building, the corporate yard, the Horton wastewater plant, adding the Nancy Wright facility. And then in that proposal, it has a specific item of what they're supposed to do on the particular days, what time. So no, we don't get down to how many hours.
So my point being is to help the accounting department with this proposition 218 with the Nancy Wright Treatment Center and the Horton Treatment Plant, may be a good idea to find out what the answer to my question, just for those two, because it relates to the 218.
I will look into that. I'll work with the general manager and see where we can actually ask for that. I'm not sure if we can actually ask them to break it down, but if it's available and they're willing, I'll certainly ask.
They clock in somewhere, right?
No, we're not their employer.
Do they have a key to get in?
They do.
So you know when they got in, right? When they left?
That's correct.
Well, that's all you need. That's all the county needs. They're there for that many hours, and that's approximately what it costs.
But we're just looking at their contract amount,
Yes, we
not,
are. No, but I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. The reason why I bring that up is so that we have that later down the line, the proposition 218.
That has nothing to do with
proposition.
proposition.
Cost.
Has nothing to do with Prop 218.
Director-
Can I interject for just a second, because I think there's a little confusion that I might be able to clarify. If you look at page 225, Director Meyerhoffen, they did split the cost for the whole year's contract per site. So it didn't say how many hours, but it did give the accounting department the cost per site. So if you look here, it's the yellow highlighted, and it says MSWD admin building. It says the annex building, the corporate yard. So it lists each and the cost associated for all the companies that bid for each of those units. So the accountant would be able to put it in each cost center.
So then it's already being done. I just didn't ask the question properly, I guess.
I was following you though. I
was-
was trying to help.
Appreciate that, because I tried to read that and it was so small, and then the numbers looked so big, it really didn't coincide with the yearly amount that we're looking at. So that's why I was questioning that. So, okay, that's it.
and I apologize, I forget who we're on. Does anyone else have questions on this item? Thank you very much, Danny.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to item 15, public water and sewer systems construction agreements for tract 32030-3, Skyborn Village 3. It is recommended to approve the public water and sewer systems construction agreements for the Skyborn Village 3, tract number 30230-3 residential development project, and authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the agreements.
Thank you,
General
President Sewell. I will ask our engineering manager, Eric Weck, to give this presentation. Eric?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, and good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Item 15 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to executing the public water and sewer systems construction agreement for Skyborn Village 3. Now, you may remember that in last month's board meeting, there was an agenda item that briefly discussed this development in terms of the board accepting and awarding the water and sewer bonding agreement. For the record, the bonding agreement and the construction agreements were given to the developer at the same time, and I believe that was in March, to sign and execute and return them both, the bonding and the construction agreements, back to us to execute and present to the board. The developer requested district staff to execute the bonding agreements first, while the construction agreement was being processed and reviewed by them, the developer. Staff accommodated this request from the developer in order to keep their project progressing. Now, today's agenda item pertains to only having the board accept the water and sewer construction agreement, as the bonding agreement was approved by the board last month in May. Typically, both the bonding and the construction agreements are presented to the board at the same time. In this case, however, the developer elected to separate them and have the district approve them separately. Are there any questions?
Director Duff? Vice President Griffith?
I have none.
Director Martin?
Nope.
No.
Director- Thank you, Eric. Item 16. Award of contract MWH Constructors Incorporated for construction management and inspection services for Skyborn Village 111 Lennar Homes. It is recommended that general manager be authorized to execute a contract agreement with MWH Constructors Incorporated for construction management and inspection services for Skyborn Village 3 Lennar Homes for an amount not to exceed $285,572.
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask that our engineering manager, Eric Weck, take this item as well. Eric?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Item 16 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to awarding a construction management contract to MWH Constructors Incorporated for construction management and inspection contract with Skyborn Village 3 development. This phase of residential development will construct over 280 homes in the Skyborn Village 3 area, and associated with that are water and sewer improvements that will be constructed by Lennar Homes. These improvements are developer driven, and as such, they necessitate the district to inspect these improvements and ensure that they are constructed to meet our standards. Lennar Homes currently has a deposit account with us, and staff has been and will actively monitor the balance of this deposit fund to make sure that it funds 100% of the inspection costs that are being done by MWH Construction. And we will reach out to the developer and request additional deposits as needed during the construction of the water and sewer improvements. Are there any questions?
Director Martin?
Nope.
Director Myhoffen?
No. Eric, I just want to say, as the chairman for the engineering committee, keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Director Duff?
Thank you. Just a quick question. They're going to be managing it through completion of each property, so they would be the ones signing off prior to occupancy, correct? Or would we have staff members going in to sign off for occupancy?
We'll inspect the water and sewer improvements as well as, the manholes and things like that. And so our contract inspector, MWH, will be doing that for us. Honestly, I don't know. I'll need to find out that information and return back to you on Monday, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much.
So this contract is for the water and sewer, the main line in the street. And then when we go at each property, then we will sit down with the city and go through and make sure that everything is done per the property. So in reality, this is everything within the right of way or to the right of way. And then when it's the building occupancy, then the building will work at the building department with ourselves to make
So
sure.
this is everything up to that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice President?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing further. Thank you very much, Eric. Item 17, contract agreement renewal with Intelisys Communications Services for information technology professional services. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Intelisys Communications Services for information technology professional services for the 12-month period of July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, and to do all things necessary to execute the agreement. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, to give this presentation. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. I will just quickly give you an update on the Intelisys Communications contract It is my pleasure to present that contract to you. It is an extension of the original 6-month contract that we started in January. It served as a way for us to test their abilities and also to see what they were capable of doing for the district. During that time, they have made several recommendations to the how we do things in terms of the security of our computers and the patches and servers and things like that. They've been the primary company as well with a lot of the technology in the right facility, including obviously helping with the day-to-day that our IT manager does, simply because there is a lot that is required of the district. Also, we have not been better posed in terms of the cybersecurity issues that we've seen other districts deal with. That is one of the key items that they are looking into to make sure we have everything segmented and the opportunity for a threat or a virus to affect the entire district to be limited. And that is one of the reasons why we are recommending that we extend that contract for an additional 12 months. Aaron with Intellisys will be here on Monday to provide a quick presentation of what they are looking and recommending for the district in the next year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Director Martin? Director Maya? Director Duff? Vice President? And I have nothing further. Thank you, Arturo. Item 18, award of contract agreement with Trimble for work order and asset management software subscription and support services. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to execute a 3-year contract with Trimble Incorporated for work order and asset management software subscription and support services in the amount of $139,584, plus a 10% contingency for a total of $153,542.40. And authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project.
Thank you, President Sewell. I will ask again our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, to give this presentation.
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. We are excited to present the contract with Trimble. They are a key partner with the implementation of the CityWorks project for the asset management and work order system that is being primarily done by tenants. This is one of the side projects that it needs to be incorporated into the project simply because there is a lot of data that we have collected over the years that we need to start cleaning up and making sure that that is going to bring into the new system correctly. And this is just another contract as part of that project. And included in your packet is also the original Timmins contract, so that you can see that that was included in there. Timmins was going to subcontract that out to another company, and it happened that Trimble was the best in terms of those relationships that they have. And that is why we're recommending that we execute a contract with Trimble for the CityWorks implementation of that asset management and work order system that we desperately need.
Any questions, Director Duff?
A quick one, and maybe I can find this later, but, or you could, will customers or our residents have the ability through this system to put in work orders directly? Like if they noticed a problem, will they be able to submit electronically by chance?
That is something that we asked to be included in that project. It's still in the very beginning phase of it, but I will make sure that that is when it's completed, that is going to be part of it. Yeah.
Great.
Including providing a lot of the detailed information about district, the location of some of our major services. We don't want to give out too much detail, but enough that they are educated and know where a lot of our sites are and, all that information.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
We won't know if this is coming through the portal or our website, but because we realize that if it's the public and they may not be a customer, but they may see a fire hydrant that got hit or a leak or something like that, it would go through our website, but also for our customers, they would also have the ability. So we're still working where the best place that would be, and it may be both, but it will be tied to our work order management system and start the process.
Vice President?
I have nothing.
Director Martin? Director Meyerhoffen?
I was just sitting here looking up the company because I recognize the name, and they are very big in the, and it's a good company.
And I think this item and some of our other IT items, overall, it's going to be a huge cost savings once we get all this up and running, and just the efficiency between staff is going to be something great to have. So thank you. Item 19, board member affiliation listing updated. It is recommended to approve the updated board affiliation listing. So we took requests from board members and compiled it all together. We discussed it at the workshop. I don't know if staff has anything. I think take a look over it. We'll be voting on it Monday. Does anyone have any questions today?
I have a comment, couple of things.
Go ahead, Director Martin.
Yeah. In the first page of the agenda staff report, it says, under summary, each January, the president of the board may suggest the appointment of representatives to attend various meetings on behalf of the district, subject to the approval of the full board. I think that the wording of that should be suggest something along the lines of a periodic review on there may necessitate changing it rather than locking it in, because somebody looking at that might say, wait a minute, this is June. What are we doing? We're not due to do this until January, or we're late by 6 months. So I would just make that change. And then the other thing I'd like to know is, assuming that this is passed on Monday, when are we anticipating it going into effect?
I would assume from time of approval.
That is correct. There is no date certain in the item, so it would be in effect once the item is passed. I know there may be some concerns at some of the meetings that have been attended in this particular month. We won't take those meetings away from a staff perspective, but from that, if we want to make it date certain and say at the beginning of the fiscal year, because we did talk about it through the budget process, and that's why we had that discussion at that time, it would make sense. So if we put date certain in there, July 1st would seem to make the most sense.
July 1st.
Yep, I'd be fine with it. Okay. Director Meyerhoffen?
I would eventually like to be put on something that has to do with water. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. I think, oh, yeah, I'll go. Director Duff, any questions or comments?
Just one, actually, on the second page there where it's talking about the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. It lists energy and environmental resources twice. And it doesn't list CVCC. And in the assignment of our board member, we actually are voting members of two of the CVCC and CVAG, which are two separately held meetings. And so it just makes it seem like it's all the same thing, whereas in fact, we sit on the Conservation Committee meeting and we also sit on the Energy Environmental Resources. So I just think there and down below, we need to take one of the CVAGs away and put CVCC, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President?
I agree with Director Martin. Perhaps we put each January or as needed, or updated as needed.
Sure.
In the summary there. That way it's not tied into anything. Because I think as time goes on, what we find is that there are changes that do need to be made, such as now considering CASA for the conferences and things of that nature. And you never know what kind of committee or organization or meetings are going to come up, such as related to conservation as a way of life, or any of the new regulations that are going to require regular attendance, or other committees. So maybe if we end up being a member of CASA and there's committees, you may end up with people that are going to do those. So I think just having the ability to do this as needed is really important. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. And my real comment is I think we've all worked together to try and really find which meetings were maybe not giving us the same value as others. Kind of along to your comment of you wish it was about water. And I think that's the reason that we've had so many adjustments is there's a lot of meetings that an organization might have one relevant meeting for us a year, but they have monthly meetings. So it might not make sense for us to be going to 12 meetings just to get the value of that one meeting. So that leads me to, if you also look later in the packet, item 29, we're gonna start having just a reoccurring director request for future meetings. So if some of these groups that we're taking off or limiting might have a relevant meeting for us, at any of our workshops or board meetings, we can propose that that be a compensable meeting. So,
Comment on there is, I understand what you're saying and I agree with most of it, but attending some of these meetings, one of the values of attending them, the networking that you get involved in working with county board of supervisors, working with different leaders of the Coachella Valley, whether a water issue comes up or not, is, I think it's important to establish a relationship and influence with other leaders in the Coachella Valley and state government. So wouldn't want to restrict it to just water, because I mean, I've
Right.
been attending city council meetings forever. And occasionally a water issue comes up, but most of the time it has nothing to do with water. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be attending, because we're building a relationship with the city that can pay off in final analysis.
right. And I think it's a fine balance of working that out. Just an example of the meeting that 4 of us attended yesterday. I'd say that was more on the side of not being as valuable. So I think we've done a lot of work to this over the past 6 months and really tightened it up. And I think, you know, for the most part, all these meetings are bringing a value, and it really is upon the individual member that is attending to take in that information and relay it back to the board. So, and further, go ahead, Director
I just
Morrow.
want to clarify my comment there. What I meant by, I agree with what you're saying there, Director Martin. What I was saying here is I'd like to be assigned to a meeting that actually had something to do with water. In other words, you have the Coachella Valley Water Agency, DVD, DWA, I mean, so that's what I was referring to. I think I'm more qualified to go and listen and understand what they're saying. As long as I don't make any comments, I'll be all right.
Well, thank you. Any other discussion? Oh, go ahead.
Just one more correction, under the all directors pre-approved, a change that was made, where an assignment was made to the county is still remaining. So I think that it was just an oversight, but the Board of Supervisors, according to the second page, has been assigned to Sewell and Martin. And so it no longer should be under the all directors pre-approved.
So I believe it's those items. So those,
Am I reading this wrong?
I think it's just under Rivco. There's 3 items that we would all go like.
those are annual events.
I read it wrong. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So yeah, the 3 items stated there are their annual events, that we would all be, compensated, where their, bi-monthly meetings would be, a designee. Right. Moving on to discussion items, item 20, Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility update.
This presentation will actually be given on Monday.
Okay. And item 21, Critical Services Center and Administrative Building update.
That will
Oh,
also.
did I repeat those?
No, that will also be given on Monday as well. We moved both of those to Monday. In knowing that we had a large agenda today, we moved them to Monday.
Right. The consent agenda consists of 4 items this month: approval of minutes, register of demands, resolution 2024-17, notice of general district election, November 5th, 2024, and establishment of deposit for optional candidate statement, and resolution 2024-19, opposing ballot initiative 1935. Does anyone want to pull a specific item to discuss?
I would like to talk about 1935.
So item 25.
Yeah.
That's page 432.
Missing a page.
You want to see?
I think it's important just to talk about, so that people understand what the impact of this initiative is.
We do
Director-
have a,
Vice President Griffith, can you turn your mic on, please?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's important that I know it's on the consent agenda, but we at least talk about what it is so that the public can have a better understanding of the negative impact of this. I know it's being sold as a great bill of goods for keeping taxes and rates down for the public, but what it really does is it really handcuffs the any state or any district, local community's ability to do anything really, and will pretty much deadlock the entire state in gridlock, just trying to run to the legislature to get things passed, which we know they're not really good at. So are you doing a little presentation?
I'm prepared to, if you'd like.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Ready?
go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board. For your consideration in the packet is a resolution opposing ballot initiative 1935. As I have covered in some of my previous general manager's reports, the ballot initiative 1935 would revise the state constitution, significantly undermine local control and disrupt the ability of local governments to provide essential services and infrastructure. An entity representing California's wealthiest corporations is behind the proposition, and it is eligible for the November 2024 statewide ballot. CSDA has formed a coalition of member agencies against the initiative and asked agencies like ourselves to adopt an individual resolution opposing it. Last fall, Governor Newsom, joined by the state legislature and former state Senate President Pro Tem John Burton, filed an emergency petition to the California Supreme Court for a pre-election challenge to the initiative, arguing that the measure is unlawful because it improperly revises the state constitution via initiative and would impair essential government services. The California Supreme Court is likely to rule on the pre-election challenge before the end of June, when the Secretary of State is anticipated to formally qualify the measure for the November 2024 ballot. Specifically, some of the changes that would cause by this initiative: it changes the way that fees can be charged and calculated. It goes against Proposition 13, 218, and 26. It's also retroactive to any fees or anything that has been changed since January of 2022. And it changes our definition of what actual cost is when we are going through and making our fees and our rates. So as I said, this is a CSDA sponsored initiative. There's a coalition and they've asked us for our support. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Marion on item 25? Director Martin?
No questions, just a statement that I'm all for it. So that's my only comment.
Director Meyerhoffen? Director Duff? Vice President?
This is something that's been on our radar for a while that Marion and General Manager Macy and I have been talking about for well over 6 months. The impact cannot be really overstated. I do believe the 26th is when they are expecting the Supreme Court decision. If it does go on the ballot, this could make things very difficult. It could really eliminate our ability to maintain our infrastructure and provide water, as well as provide clean water. So people need to really think about the impact. It's really easy to say, hey, it's going to save me money, but in the long run, it may not save you anything because you may not have clean water to drink. So very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 26, or anything further on consent agenda? Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
On 24, can we just have a slight discussion, just for my own clarification on, it was asking for a deposit for the candidate statement. Does that mean paid by the candidate, or is that saying, are we authorizing paying their candidate statement for them? I just want to make sure I'm clearly understanding that.
It's my
Because I
understanding.
paid for my own and I want to make sure everybody pays for their own. Thank you very much.
I don't think they're necessary. I didn't.
No, we would not be paying for any of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 26, directors' reports. Would anyone like to give their report today?
Me.
Andy? Andy? All right, and the only thing I'll note, I'll do mine on Monday as well, but the 21st, 22nd, I did not attend the CSDA legislative day. Item 27, general manager's report. We have the finance report and public affairs report.
Just very quickly, we will give, the finance report was actually the budget, so we won't have a finance report per se. But the public affairs report we'll give on Monday. I did want to mention that on the dais, we placed the 2 candidate statements we've received for CSDA Southern Region. As we continue to get more in, I'll make sure that the board gets a copy. I just received those most recently. The voting will be cast on July 26th. Therefore, we will have an opportunity to discuss who we would like to vote for at our next July meeting.
Thank you. Item 28, district council comments.
Yes, just briefly, some of the things that we've worked on recently for the district include assisting the district in responding to a very voluminous Public Records Act request that we received. We've been working with Dory on responding to that. Also, as you know, we filed the petition for review with the California Supreme Court in Mission Springs Water District versus DWA. I don't have an update on that at this time. It's been briefed. The request for review has been briefed by both sides. The other items include assisting the district on employment-related matters, assisting staff with enforcement of its industrial discharge ordinance, and then working with the district on analyzing a potential duplication of service issue. Also, as needed, reviewing contracts for the district, and then assisting with the acquisition of the easement that's needed for the new regional plant. And then we completed our review of a proposed codification of district ordinances and resolutions, which I assume will be coming to you in the near future. And then worked on the update to the personnel rules that you went over today.
Thank you. Item 29, director's comments, and I'll just mention again, item C is new, the director request for future meetings. So this would be the time we're going to include at any of our workshops or monthly meetings that you can request if you have a meeting you feel is relevant to receive compensation to attend on behalf of the district. This would be the portion of the meeting that you could do so. So any director comments, Director Martin?
No.
Director Meyerhoffen?
No.
Director Duff? Vice President? And I'll keep it consistent and not have any today. Closed session, we are not having a closed session today?
No, we don't need one today or Monday. I don't think, unless, something changes, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. And with that, meeting is adjourned.